Good morning, children. Today we will continue from where we stopped, The Tale of Two Cities, page 52. We reached up to the point where Mr. Jarvis Lorry and Lucy Manette are going to visit Lucy's father, who had been in prison for very many long years. If you remember, I read the novel to you and we covered these chapters where Lucy meets her father and the father has lost his memory and is not able to recognize Lucy. So we will continue from there. And both Mr. Defarge and Mrs. Defarge, Monsieur Defarge and Madame Defarge, are very strong characters, very determined, very decided. They have a strong will, means if they decide anything, they will see that it is done. So that is the characteristic, the main characteristic of both these people. Now, Madame Defarge is always shown that it is always shown that she is knitting, and she is actually knitting the names of people whom they have decided to kill at the French Revolution. Defarge is one of the leaders of the French Revolution, and he supports whatever Madame Defarge does. But he had that respect for Lucy because at one time he had been the servant of Dr. Manette. So that respect is there for him. There is some trait of goodness in Mr. Defarge which is not found in Madame Defarge at all. Mr. Jarvis Lorry, the gentleman, and Miss Lucy Manette joined Defarge in the courtyard, to which he had recently directed the three men. Earlier there were three men in the wine shop. They went to see Defarge. In the courtyard, Defarge did a surprising thing. This is the surprising thing he did. He went down on one knee and put his lips to the young lady's hand. He showed his respect for Lucy because he had been the servant of Dr. Manette. Defarge at one time had been a servant of Dr. Manette, Lucy's father. Lucy's mother had died and her father had disappeared. That is, when they were living in France, the father disappeared and no one knew what had happened to him. His money was in Tellson's bank, an English bank, and that is how Jarvis Lorry comes into the picture. He is from the bank and he is very faithful to the Manette family. The baby Lucy was brought to England and Mr. Jarvis Lorry, an official of Tellson's bank and an old friend of her father's, was put in charge of her money. So there is enough money, but she is growing up in the care of Mrs. Pross, a maid who was very faithful also. And an old friend of her father's was put in charge of the money and her education. Mr. Lorry had asked an English woman, Miss Pross, to bring up the child. This is the lady, Miss Pross, who looked after Lucy and was very loyal and faithful to Lucy. Over the years that followed, Miss Pross became like a mother to Lucy and would have given her life for her. She was ready. Miss Pross was even ready to sacrifice her life for Lucy. Lucy was now a young woman and strange news had brought her and Mr. Lorry to Paris. That is, after so many years, they heard the news that Lucy's father was alive. The news that Dr. Manette, who all had thought to be dead, was alive. He had been a prisoner in the Bastille, the great prison of Paris. Bastille is a very important place where important prisoners are kept. Now he had been set free and was in the care of his old servant Defarge. Defarge rose to his feet. A remarkable change had come over his face. A look of anger and hatred had replaced his good-natured expression. Hatred for those who had harmed someone he loved. That is the reason for his anger and hatred. Someone had wronged people whom Defarge and his wife loved. The stairs are high, said Defarge. Let us go up slowly. Is Dr. Manette alone? Whispered Mr. Lorry. Of course, he has been used to being alone for so long that now he cannot bear the presence of others. For so many long years, I think it is 18 years, he had been alone, he had been locked up in the room. So now he is afraid if others come to see him. He is also afraid if the room to the door is open. He wants it to be locked. That is because for long years it had been done like that. Is he greatly changed? That is the question asked by Jarvis Lorry. Changed, you will not recognize him. Dr. Manette is so changed that he is not the old doctor. He is still the old doctor, but he has changed very much. As they neared the top of the stairs, Defarge took a key out of his pocket. Do you keep the door locked? I think it is safer to do so. Why? So the visitors are asking Defarge if the door to the doctor's room is always locked. And he gives the reason. Because he has lived so long locked up that he would be frightened if the door was left open. The doctor will be frightened. Is it possible? Asked Mr. Lorry in surprise. Mr. Lorry cannot believe that such a thing has happened to Dr. Manette.